All right, hello tribe. So today we're going to tackle the high protein breakfast. I've had a couple of people ask actually in the group for some ideas of high protein breakfast ideas. And I feel like this is a question that I do get a lot. So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to give you some tips and ideas of things that I think you can do. But the first thing I want to dive into is high protein breakfast. Well, your breakfast doesn't have to be high protein. What it needs to be is enough protein. It needs to be enough protein for your body, for your goals. Are you maintaining? Are you losing body fat? Are you trying to put on muscle? So high protein may not be what you need. I think it's just become such a hot topic because traditionally, especially here in America, women don't get enough protein, and our traditional breakfast is typically heavy on the carb side. So yes, you're going to see if you Google it just for the heck of it and you type in high protein breakfast, you're going to see so many things pop up, so many recipes and ideas. And I can guarantee you they're not all actually healthy for you, but they might be higher in protein. They might also be really high in sugar. So keep an eye out for that. But what I want you to stop thinking about is, a high protein. Think enough protein. Think my protein requirements. So again, how do you find out what your protein requirements are? If you're working with a personal trainer, they can do your body fat assessment. They can give you an idea of how much protein you need. If you don't have a trainer that you're working with, you can, or even if you are, you can use an outside service like Avatar Nutrition that we've talked about. But let's take an example of a woman who needs 150 grams of protein a day. This is just an example. I don't know if this is you or if you need more, if you need less. I'm just using this as an example. So if you have 150 grams of protein a day that you need, and you're having maybe 3 meals and 2 snacks a day, you can do the math on that. You can divide it by 5 and just make sure that all your meals and snacks have an equal amount of protein, or you can kind of go a little heavier on your breakfast, lunch, and dinner and a little less on your snacks. But you don't have to look at breakfast and be like, oh, I've got to get all this protein in it's got to be a high protein breakfast. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be enough protein. So the first step is for you to find out how much protein you even need to be getting based on your goals, based on your body type, on your size, your metabolism, all that jazz. And honestly, if you don't know, and let's say you don't even have the ability, or this is not the time for you to talk to a professional or seek any kind of help, just say to yourself, how much do I weigh? Okay, so let's say you weigh 180 pounds. And now say to yourself, am I healthy and fit, or am I overweight? Depending on where you go through that, you're most likely going to be carrying, most women, the first time they come to me, whether they're small or large or athletic or not, most women come into the studio and they have about 40 pounds of body fat on their body. 40 to 60, just depends on where they are. So take your weight, subtract from it 30 to 50, depending on how heavy you think you might be. And when I say heavy, I don't mean your overall weight. I just mean how much, body fat mass you might have. And then you'll be left with that number. So let's say the example is the woman comes in, she weighs 180 pounds, and we find out she has about 40 pounds of body fat on her. That leaves 140 pounds of lean mass. That's a strong chick. I'm going to say she needs at least 140 grams of protein a day just to maintain what she has. So if you just need sort of a guideline, you can kind of look at that. Some people just look at their weight in general and say that's how much they need. You can do that. It's not, you don't not always need that much. But if that's a place to start, you can always adjust as your body changes. But so let's talk about some ideas. Now let's say we've now discovered how much we need. We're not necessarily shooting totally for a high protein breakfast, but we're definitely going to get in the protein that we need. Now, depending on what you've been eating, this may seem high for you. You may be like, gosh, this is a lot of protein. I've never had this much protein in my breakfast. I typically have a piece of toast and a cup of coffee and I'm out the door. Or you may look at it and be like, gosh, I've been having all kinds of protein and I didn't even really need to have that much. So it just depends where you are. On average, you're probably not getting enough though. I will say that. So first and foremost, the thing to think about is in America, we eat a high carbohydrate breakfast typically because a lot of the convenience foods or things that we've been marketed for the last 40 some years are heavy in the carbohydrate realm. Cereal, even if it says it's high in protein, even if it says fortified, blah, 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 it's most likely more carbohydrate than it is protein. So read those labels. Yes, I know milk has some protein in it, but milk also has a lot of sugar in it. So don't fool yourself thinking you're having a fortified cereal with milk and you feel like you're getting all this protein. You might be getting some protein, but you're getting more sugar than not. So learn to read those labels. Breakfast food doesn't have to be your typical breakfast food. If you have leftovers from last night, if you've got some leftover chicken or some leftover steak or whatever the heck it is you had the night before, that's a great breakfast. Food is food. We have just kind of marketed, or been marketed, I should say, that breakfast has to be toast or bagels or pancakes, or it has to be eggs and bacon. It has to be biscuits and gravy, that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be food in your belly. And on a side note, breakfast doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. It doesn't have to be in the first 30 minutes. There's no set time that you'll do better with breakfast. Some people are starving the second they wake up and they need food. Some people have just a belly situation or a morning routine that they just don't have time for breakfast first thing, and that's okay. As long as from the time you open your eyes to the time you close your eyes, you get in your requirements of protein, fats, and carbs and enough calories during the day. I don't care when you get them in, just get them in. So if breakfast for you is 6 a.m. or breakfast for you is 9:30, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you're getting your calories that you need. So if you're thinking the typical breakfast foods, obviously eggs is a big winner. A lot of people look at eggs and they know right away that is a protein. That's not the only protein out there. Any protein that you would normally have for lunch or dinner is also a breakfast possibility. So chicken, fish, meat, eggs, those are my favorites, so that's what I'm remembering. Those are good protein sources. So if you want to have, like for instance, if you have some chicken left over from last night, you could slice some chicken up, throw it in the skillet, throw in some eggs with it. That's a great way of adding some flavor to your eggs and making a little dish really quickly with something that you have. If you want to pre-cook a lot of stuff, because I'm a huge fan of food prep, you could make the little, it's like where you take a cupcake muffin pan, but you put eggs and vegetables and sausage or whatever in it, and you cook them up so you have those handy dandy little egg muffins that pop right out and they're easy to travel with. Fish for breakfast. Say what? I know, Jennifer, I know it messes with your head because you've never maybe had fish for breakfast, but I can promise you there's tons of people all over this world who eat fish for breakfast, and they probably laugh at the fact that we don't. So think outside the box. If you've ever had one of those jobs where you work third shift and you've realized how you started to pick up some maybe odd behaviors because your breakfast was maybe really dinner time, your body will adjust to it, your brain will adjust to it. You just have to be open to it. So one of my favorite ways to get protein in, really any time of day, but especially for breakfast, are liquid egg whites. And I know a lot of people are like, blah, they're so gross, they have no taste, yada, yada, yada. The amazing, wonderful part about liquid egg whites are that they really don't have a taste. You can put them in anything. Now, I am not saying crack an egg and take the egg white out of the egg and eat it. Please don't do that. Salmonella is real. No, no, no. I'm talking about the liquid egg whites you buy in a carton that have been pasteurized. They actually have the texture of water, so they're not that ooey gooiness of like a true egg. They have the texture of water. They really don't have a lot of flavor to them, if any. So you can add them to eggs. You can add them to, like I've been known to throw in some leftover chicken or steak or whatever and pour some egg whites on and season it up. Something that I love to do that I know some people are freaked out the first time, but I promise once you do it once, you'll be a believer. If you're making a smoothie or a protein shake, you can use egg whites instead of water, or you can go half and half. And you will not taste them, I promise. They will not make the texture different, I promise, but it will definitely up the protein value significantly. So that brings me to a little point I want to make to you. I know smoothies are super popular, especially amongst the ladies and especially for breakfast because they taste delicious. They travel well. You're able to, drink a smoothie while you're driving type situation. But I want you to be aware, a lot of times smoothie recipes or just the average smoothie in general has a lot of sugar in it. You have to remember, based on your goals, healthy foods are not always weight loss foods. So if I'm looking at a high protein smoothie for my breakfast, it's probably going to have raspberries or strawberries in it because they're going to have a low sugar content. It's probably going to have some almond milk, the unsweetened kind. It's probably going to have some liquid egg whites in it and maybe even a shot of protein powder to give it some flavor and some sweetness. If you are at your ideal weight and you're just looking for a breakfast full of antioxidants and fiber and stuff, you might throw in all kinds of fruit. But you just have to remember, fruit does have sugar. Yes, it's natural sugar, but your body still treats it as sugar. So if your goal is to lose body fat, then that's probably not the direction you want to go. You want to really be careful what you're putting in your smoothie. A lot of times when people start with me as a client and we write down their, we track their food for a week or so, they're shocked when we add up the numbers of how many calories and how much sugar they're just having first thing in the morning in a smoothie. Smoothies are great because they're quick to make and because they taste good and they travel well. However, you have to remember when you're drinking your calories, it doesn't take your body long to break things down. So have you ever noticed you might have a smoothie and you immediately feel full because it's thick and there's all kinds of goodness in there, but it's not too long after that you're like, oh, I'm already hungry. That's because smoothies go through you very quickly. You can digest and process that very fast, especially if it's high in sugar. It's going to give you a blood sugar spike. So you want to pay attention to what you're putting in your smoothie, and you want to make sure that you know that your smoothie is not going to hold you over forever. But it is a good option. It's a great way to get some protein in there, some fiber, all that good stuff. But just remember, liquid egg whites are super handy to have. Laura says she adds egg whites to oatmeal. Yes, it's an awesome thing to add egg whites to. I have been known to take my eggs and my egg whites and mix them all up just to make it bigger and fluffier. You can take those egg cups, maybe put one egg per muffin and fill the rest with egg whites. Don't be afraid of egg whites, you guys. It's a fat-free, high protein, fat-free, pure protein source that you can add, and it will take on whatever flavor you put it with. It's just super handy to keep in the kitchen. And you can experiment at first, and I know it's going to be weird, and I know the first time you put it in a smoothie, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I promise you're going to like it once you do it. Some other things you can do to add protein. So obviously, the first thing I want you to do is think outside the box. Don't just think eggs and egg whites, even though I know I just spent a ton of time talking about that. But add things like chicken, add things like, yes, fish. Tuna is excellent to add to egg whites or something like that for breakfast, or you can put tuna on like a English muffin or something, and you could have maybe with a little guacamole, like a little avocado. That would be a really good high protein, healthy breakfast. But some other things you want to think about, like, oatmeal. I know oatmeal is awesome to have. I think it's a great addition to a lot of people for breakfast. But again, oatmeal is mainly a carbohydrate, so you've got to get your protein in there. So like Laura suggested, you can add your egg whites to that. You can, once you cook your oatmeal, you can add some flavor plus protein to it by using a scoop of protein powder. Just don't eat just the oatmeal. And a lot of times I see people with these beautiful bowls of oatmeal with the berries on top and the granola, all this like fancy stuff. But it's really, if you break it down, it's sugar over sugar over sugar over sugar. And you've got to add some protein to that to slow that absorption down, to add some protein to make sure the blood sugar spike isn't huge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to share in the comments below, if Facebook will let me. If not, I'll have to do it as a separate post. But I'm going to share some recipes for some breakfast ideas. And I just want you guys to take this chance to start thinking differently. So for example, this morning for breakfast, I had some egg whites, but I also took some chili that was left over from yesterday and I put it in the egg whites. So it really just tasted like chili, but it was really high in protein and it gave me enough calories for the day. You can mix vegetables in the morning with your protein sources. Don't just think of the eggs and bacon or the eggs and oatmeal. Think outside of that. Think of how can you take some of your leftovers or how can you take some of your other favorite protein sources and incorporate them into breakfast. And one of the things I'm hoping Facebook will let me share are pictures of breakfast around the world so that you can see that America really is pretty connected to their cereal and their bread for breakfast, and a lot of other places aren't. A lot of other places are eating just true meals. It's just a meal that they eat early in the day. So don't fall prey to General Mills marketing that we've all grown up with. There are other foods you can have for breakfast, and they are good for you. And also, don't fall prey for the women have to have a high protein diet or a high protein breakfast. I do want you to have protein at breakfast, but I want you to have enough protein, because if you're eating too much of anything, it's going to be bad for you. So my first objective for you is to find out how much protein you really need. You can even Google. There are probably some free macro calculators online. You know, the accuracy is going to be a little bit off because of the fact that you're just entering some information. You don't have somebody actually measuring you. But try to find a macro calculator. If I find a link for a good one, I'll share that as well. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of that avatar, and of course, I'm a huge fan of myself. So you can always, you know, be a client, and I'll help you with that. But find out how much you need. That way, you can then tailor your meals around that. And, you know, honestly, some people really, really, really struggle having protein at breakfast. And if that is truly your issue, as long as you know that going in, then you can bump up your protein that you need at lunch and dinner and some of your snacks. So I just know that high protein breakfast is a big trigger for a lot of people. I know a lot of women are like, oh, I'm not getting enough protein. I know I need to eat better protein. But I just wanted you to be aware that if you Google that topic and you start going through recipes, you're going to find some recipes that might be high in protein, but they're not necessarily weight loss recipes. They might also be high in sugar. So you're better off to just stick with what you already have at home. Get creative when you're whipping up your breakfast. Use some of last night's leftovers. Invest in a high quality protein powder because that will help you along the way. And do not be afraid of using egg whites cooked or cooked or raw, but not a raw egg white, a pasteurized egg white that comes in a a carton. Please do not crack an egg and eat it like in the movie Rocky. It's Nixay on the Ixay on that, okay? Bad for you. So buy the pasteurized egg whites, get creative with them. I know that a lot of you think they're going to taste gooey and ooey. They don't. They have the texture of water. I promise. So if you guys have questions, if you have something that you make for breakfast that you love, that you know is high in protein, comment below. Let people know. I love when we share recipes on this page. I think there's just a ton of awesome women in this group, and I know we can help each other. So hopefully this helped you a little. I just really want to push you to think outside the box. And remember that, yes, I'm a big fan of protein, but you don't have to have high protein so much as you need to have enough protein, and you got to figure out what the heck that number is. So if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.